Complete lockdown after 8 coordinated explosions ripped through churches and hotels.
The death toll surging as dozens are arrested, the latest overnight. And the mystery deepens in the search for a missing 5-year-old boy in Illinois.
The family no longer cooperating with police. Why their home is now considered a crime scene. And it's not how you start, but how you finish.
Going back, he's still going back. He's near the wall, and it is.
That made this play one of the craziest ever. Fox and Friends First continues right now.
All right, and a good morning to you. You are watching Fox and Friends First on this Monday morning. I'm Jillian Mealy.
And I'm Todd Pyro in for Rob Schmidt. Thank you for starting your Monday with us. And back with that Fox News alert, Sri Lanka on lockdown after a series of coordinated bombings target churches and hotels on Easter Sunday.
Nearly 300 people now confirmed dead. Aisha Husni joins us live in studio with breaking information on who might be responsible. Aisha?
Yeah, this is all developing this morning. Sri Lanka's health minister has just announced that a local militant group carried out these attacks. At least 24 people have now been arrested, but still, no group has taken credit for the attacks that have killed now at least 290 people and wounded at least 500 more. It comes after the prime minister suggested police were aware of possible plans to target churches and hotels, but that he and his administration, get this, were not adequately informed. That, of course, is raising new questions now about what could have been done to stop these attacks. Investigators say the initial wave of attacks was carried out by 7 suicide bombers. This all unfolded on Easter Sunday as Christians in Sri Lanka were celebrating one of the holiest days of the year. Pope Francis addressed the tragedy from the Vatican.
I want to express my love and closeness to the Christian community targeted while they were gathered in prayer and all the victims of such cruel violence.
Now, most of the blasts were near the capital city of Colombo, which is a popular tourist destination. The U.S. State Department confirming now that some Americans were killed. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said in a statement, quote, "These vile attacks are a stark reminder of why the United States remains resolved in our fight to defeat terrorism. We stand with the Sri Lankan government and people as they confront violent extremism." President Trump also adding this on Twitter, quote, "The United States offers heartfelt condolences to the great people of Sri Lanka. We stand ready to help." Now, the U.S. State Department on Sunday issued a revised warning on travel to Sri Lanka and said terror groups are actually still continuing to plot and possibly even carry out new attacks in hotels and churches. Back to you guys.
Just horrible. Aisha, thank you so much.
And Democrats hosting a conference call today to discuss the redacted Mueller report. They're also expected to discuss impeaching the president.
Griff Jenkins live for us in Washington with White House reaction. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Todd and Jillian. Yeah, Democrats have a tough call to make. Did Mueller find enough for them to make the case for impeachment? That's the question, and that's the focus of Speaker Pelosi's all-hands-on-deck conference call today. Now, to date, the Speaker has rejected calls for impeachment, but writes in her letter that the next steps forward will be informed by her chairman, and Gerald Nadler isn't ruling it out.
Do you think this is impeachable?
I do think that this, if proven, which hasn't been proven yet, some of this, if proven, some of this would be impeachable, yes.
All right.
Obstruction of justice, if proven, would be impeachable.
But another chairman, Adam Schiff, says it's not possible without bipartisan support.
I think it's certainly the case that an impeachment would be unsuccessful if the Republican Party continues to place party above country, continues essentially to back the president no matter how unethical or dishonest his conduct may be.
But a growing chorus of progressives are demanding a louder 2020 hopeful Elizabeth Warren. You see there the first candidate to do so, along with rising stars Rashida Tlaib and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. All of this as the president punches back on Twitter, writing, "How do you impeach a Republican president for a crime that was committed by the Democrats? Make America great again." And his senior advisor, Kellyanne Conway, delivering news Democrats don't want to hear.
The president is not going to jail. He's staying in the White House for 5.5 more years. Why? Because they found no crime, no conspiracy. That was the central premise.
Now, don't expect any resolution after this conference call today. It's probably going to go into May, guys, when Attorney General Barr and Special Counsel Mueller are expected to testify on the Hill.
Yeah, this is far from over, that's for sure. Thank you, Griff.
Griff, thanks. Democrats clinging to the Mueller report findings, vowing to keep the pressure on the president.
But Kayleigh McEnany, the president's 2020 national press secretary, says he is winning on two fronts.
The president's done two things at once, dealt with this roving special counsel, but also achieved for the American people the hottest economy we've seen in, 50 years. So he can do both. But it's so crucial to get to the bottom of this. When you have a sitting attorney general who previously was unanimously confirmed, A.G. Barr, say spying did occur on a presidential campaign, that should strike fear in the heart of everyone, regardless of party, that a presidential campaign was surveilled via wiretaps, via unmasking, and via human sources. We must get to the bottom of that. When the intelligence community is weaponized against one political party out of the motivation of political retribution and stopping a presidential candidate, everyone must care. So we will positively achieve. The president can't be stopped on that front, but we'll also investigate via A.G. Barr, who has already said he's going to do this.
Both the House and Senate plan to grill Attorney General Barr about the report early next month and plan to hear from Robert Mueller himself before May 23rd. Todd.
The man accused of posing as an Uber driver and murdering a college student due in court today. Nathaniel Rowland charged with killing 21-year-old Samantha Josephson in South Carolina. Last month, prosecutors say he lured her into his car, stabbed her multiple times, and dumped her body in the woods. Police believe she got into his car thinking it was her rideshare. The search for a missing 5-year-old shifts to his own home. Investigators say there's no indication Andrew Friend was abducted after his parents reported him missing on Wednesday. Their Illinois home is considered a crime scene as his mother begs for answers.
We can be home together. I just want my kids. That's all I have. That's my life. They're my kids.
Andrew's father says he will continue to look for his son on his own. The Illinois Department of Children and Family Services has been involved with this family since Andrew was born.
An Army soldier is killed in a non-combat incident on his first deployment to Iraq. 22-year-old Ryan Riley from Kentucky was a fire control specialist with several awards and decorations. His death comes as the remains of Air Force Staff Sergeant Albert Miller are returned to the U.S. Miller died Friday at an air base in Qatar. Both deaths are under investigation. Today, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is expected to announce all countries importing oil from Iran will face U.S. sanctions. The Washington Post reports the Trump administration is ending waivers for these 8 countries that look to Iran for oil. The U.S. is ramping up pressure on Iran to curb its nuclear program. The change takes effect on May 2nd.
Attorney Michael Avenatti accused of stealing more than $1 million from a pro basketball player. Prosecutors say Avenatti was hired by Miami Heat center Hassan Whiteside to settle a lawsuit with an ex-girlfriend. But instead of giving her the money she was entitled to, he took most of it for himself to buy a private jet. Avenatti's facing several counts of fraud and extortion. He denies all claims against him.
In a few hours, the annual White House Easter egg roll gets underway. This is video of the president and first lady at last year's event. 74,000 eggs are being donated this year, more than double years past. There will be competitions, decorating stations, and egg pop snacks. Those are hard-boiled eggs on a stick. Yum. Fox and Friends will be there all morning long, starting at 6 a.m. That's always looks like a fun day.
It does, but I have hard-boiled eggs, 2 of them every morning. I don't know if I'd want them on a stick.
Yeah. Well, you could if you wanted to.
Right into Friends at FoxNews.com. Time now, 9 minutes after the hour. Hundreds of casualties after bombers target churches and hotels in Sri Lanka. Our next guest says this is evidence that a decade-long terror battle is far from over. Counterterrorism expert Aaron Cohen joins us live to talk about what comes next.
And students protested a class taught by Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, saying he made them feel unsafe. But the university just got the final word. We'll tell you about it when we return. Welcome back. A Fox News alert. At least 290 people killed in a coordinated terror attack on Sri Lankan hotels and churches celebrating Easter Sunday.
Several Americans among those killed. 24 people now arrested in connection with the blasts.
Here now to react is a former member of Israel's Special Operations Counter-Terrorist Unit, Aaron Cohen. Aaron, thanks for your time this morning. Unfortunately, under these circumstances, let's go ahead and bring up this graphic that we have that shows recent attacks on religious centers. You can obviously see the latest there in Sri Lanka, of course, recently New Zealand, and also on that list just last year here in the United States, the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting. Why do you think we're seeing a lot of these? Are these targets just extremely soft?
I think the targets are soft, and I think it also has the highest psychological impact as far as what these Islamic extreme terror organizations are going for. In terrorism, what we've learned over the years is that whoever is the most scared is the one losing. And in this case, it's spreading an extreme ideology. And when they can go after churches, when they can go after synagogues, when they can go after religious groups, Christians and Catholics, particularly on Easter weekend, it has a very, very significant impact. And so psychologically, they're very successful. It creates a lot of media, obviously. And what we're seeing in Sri Lanka here is a very soft targets. The 8 that were attacked, including the lack of unpreparedness, obviously, with the Sri Lankan authorities. It's a big mess over there, and all of this needs to be recalibrated and relooked at.
Well, to that preparation point, there were reports that about 10 days ago, security officials were alerted to the threat of a possible attack or series of attacks. Is this a situation where they just didn't pay any attention to those? Has our complacency risen to a sad level? What's going on here?
Well, it sounds to me like the Sri Lankan authorities who had reported that there was a potential terror alert from a group called the Thawith Jihath, I believe is the name of it. It's a local militant terror organization that hasn't had a lot of PR in the recent years since the ending of the civil war and the fighting about a decade ago in Sri Lanka. And it sounds like there was a report that had come out about 14 days ago that never made it to the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. And this is precisely what you don't want to do when it comes to counterterror operations, because at the end of the day, actionable intelligence is what's going to help you prevent attacks from happening. That's the first goal. The second goal, obviously, is to be able to go after those terrorists in a coordinated fashion. Once you have that information, to be able to then arrest them to prevent the attack from happening, and then use those interrogations to be able to extract new intelligence and information from those terror leaders to be able to prevent future attacks. So that's a multi-layered approach, and it's done through the use of special operations forces. But there's another monster missing piece here, which is that you had a group of terrorists come together for a specific reason to attack specific targets on a very soft targets on a very religious week, on an Easter weekend, and you had a very lax response from the security forces. And I think that what you have is ill-prepared law enforcement in Sri Lanka. You didn't have armed security at these hotels. There weren't barriers and checks. And I think that there was multi-layers that failed, and that's, again, the goal here. You want to have as many layers in between the terrorists and then the soft targets, so that it would take a multi-failure event for the terrorists to be successful. In this case, you had a failure on the intelligence level. You had a failure on the response level. And I'm not sure if you noticed, but there was also a high-risk raid that was conducted where several police officers were killed after the fact, going after these potential suspects where some bombs went off. And so there just seems to be a lot of lack of training here in this particular region, and I think that they need to really tighten it up.
And to that point, Aaron, we'd like to think anyway, if something like this were planned here in the United States and the officials here got word of it perhaps 10 days in advance, that's at least what we're hearing anyway, that happened in Sri Lanka, we'd hope that that could be prevented here.
Correct. And I think it can be prevented. But again, actionable intelligence, moving quickly on the intelligence. So let me just add this. Every one of these countries in South Asia and in the Middle East, all 160 or 80 partners that we have on the global war of terror, every one of them needs to start standing up a national counter-terrorist academy so that their military and police can be trained in tactical first response, including suicide bomber prevention as well as active shooter response. And that needs to happen ASAP. And that's where I come out.
Aaron Cohen, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Time now, 18 minutes after the hour. 10,000 millionaires overnight. No, it's not the lottery. It could be a reality, though, in San Francisco. The unbelievable boost to big tech from Wall Street.
And it started out as a crazy catch to rob a home run, but it's what happened after that has the sports world buzzing. You don't want to miss it.
This is a big talker. The Flyers out of Philadelphia remove a statue of a late singer Kate Smith after controversial songs from 80 years ago. 80 come to light.
And some lyrics in those songs deemed racist. Hank Flynn from our affiliate in Philadelphia joins us live. Good morning, Hank.
Hey, good morning, guys. No, they didn't remove this statue from this mount lightly, but when they did it quickly. Look right here at where the bolts have been sawed off. Kate Smith, singer of God Bless America, and all it meant to the Flyers' legacy. Some of the fans we talked to have mixed reactions. Some were telling us that no, they shouldn't have taken the statue down. Others said in this day and age, you can't leave any room for error. You have to pull it down, and pull it down the Flyers did, guys. No question about the nature of the recordings that have been rediscovered, however. References to cotton picking, bigoted, nasty racial slurs in some of the titles. You know, the team actually put this statement out. Paul Holmgren, the Flyers president, saying that hockey is for everyone and that no recovered old material from the old days could get in the way of where the Flyers are going nowadays. I put a picture of this out on Twitter, however, and one user told me, listen, judging actions from people in the past against today's expectations will rarely turn out favorable. So even though the statue is now gone, guys, the discussion remains heated. And the Yankees having some of the same discussions today as well. The statue, however, that's gone. That's a memory.
Yeah, Hank Flynn, thank you very much. It's a big deal. Anyone who's been to a Flyers game, what they do in the arena anyway, they play that video that you saw just a couple seconds ago of Kate Smith on the Jumbotron as Lauren Hart is singing God Bless America, you know, in the building. And it's always been beautiful to see.
And
so
for the Yankees, it is the 7th inning stretch song started after 9/11. It's amazing that we're talking about stuff that happened 80 years ago.
Yep, absolutely. We'll keep you updated. In the meantime, there's a new gold rush hitting San Francisco.
Yeah, it's a new batch of big tech startups going public, creating millionaires overnight.
Claudia Cowan explains.
San Francisco is bracing for a new tech boom, the kind that makes millionaires overnight. It's a wave of startups going public. Levi's and Lyft already have. Uber, Airbnb, Slack, and others will soon, with plans to raise hundreds of billions of dollars in their initial public offering. It will mean a big payday for employees who cash in on their stock options. By one estimate, the Bay Area could see up to 10,000 newly minted millionaires with money to spend on everything from high-end cars to real estate. In San Francisco, already one of the most expensive cities in the world, the median home price is $1.4 million. That could soon look like a bargain.
Over the next 5 years, I expect rent prices and home prices to appreciate at least 50%. 100% is also plausible, and we're looking at a much more expensive city.
This tech boom comes just a few years after the explosive growth of companies like Apple, Google, and Facebook saw the gentrification of middle-class neighborhoods where longtime tenants were suddenly priced out. That, coupled with the arrival of private shuttle buses to get tech workers to and from Silicon Valley, created tensions that still linger and could deepen.
But don't expect a buying frenzy immediately. Analysts say it could take a year or more for the money from all of these IPOs to make it from Wall Street to Market Street. In San Francisco, Claudia Cowan, Fox News.
All right, check this out. An incredible catch sparks an even more amazing double play on the diamond.
He's still going back. He's near the wall.
Runs faster than Justin Smoke there. Look at him lumber. Let's watch this again. We have time? Whoop, whoop, whoop. I'm plodding back. Now watch me run from first to second. Claude, I'm out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you guys like this play-by-play? Good color analyst over here.
Maybe you should get Jared Max back in here for the sports. That was kind of rough.
26 minutes after the hour. With Joe Biden's 2020 announcement expected in just days, is the Democratic stage set for another establishment versus socialist showdown?
Who has the upper hand between Bernie and Biden? We debate it next.
And welcome back. A look at our top headlines for you this morning, starting with a Fox News alert. Sri Lanka on lockdown after a series of Easter Sunday attacks on churches and hotels. Officials now confirming the initial attacks were carried out by 7 suicide bombers. 290 people are now confirmed dead, including Americans. Hundreds of other people are wounded. At least 24 people have been arrested. No group has claimed responsibility. And today, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is expected to announce all countries importing oil from Iran will face sanctions. The U.S. ramping up pressure on Iran to curb its nuclear program. The changes take effect on May 2nd. Also today, Democrats hosting a conference call to discuss the redacted Mueller report. The call will be led by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who claims President Trump did obstruct justice. Democrats are expected to consider the possibility of impeachment. Well, Eric Holder slamming Attorney General Bill Barr over his handling of the Mueller report. Quote, he's making mistakes. The Attorney General of the United States is the people's lawyer, not the president's lawyer. But is that criticism fair? Joining us now to discuss is constitutional law attorney Jenna Ellis. Jenna, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Good morning, Heather. Great to see you.
So let's begin right off the bat. You heard the former AG Holder say there that AG Barr is not the president's attorney general, but he said something quite different when he was on this show back in 2013. Listen.
Are you going to stay around for all 4 years?
Well, I don't know. We'll see.
Come on, man. Come on. Come on.
We need you.
I got to ask. Come on, Mr. Attorney General, please.
So, well, I'm happy. I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. There's still work to be done. I'm still a president's wingman, so I'm there with my boy.
So okay to be the president's wingman. From 2009 to 2015, he was the attorney general under Barack Obama. What do you think?
Yeah, well, this is nothing more than a partisan character attack against Bill Barr, who has an incredible, impeccable record. And of course, the Attorney General is the chief law enforcement officer of the United States, and he's vested with being nonpartisan. And Bill Barr has consistently been objective and nonpartisan in his handling of the entire Mueller report. And basically with the Democrats, Heather, it's just he's condemned if he does, he's condemned if he doesn't. I mean, with the summary that he released, it was factual. It went to the letter of the law, and if he hadn't released that summary immediately and waited, of course, the Democrats would have said, what is he hiding? So no one can be satisfied, much less Attorney General Eric Holder. And so if he had been tasked with this and would have handled it in the most professional manner, he would have done exactly as Bill Barr has done consistently throughout his tenure as Attorney General.
Although he may have been dealing with the president, Barack Obama, who declared executive privilege when it came to Fast and Furious, because people automatically making that comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's worth noting that the White House and President Trump have never once claimed executive privilege. They've been fully cooperative throughout the entire scope of the 22-month investigation. And again, I mean, Bill Barr is simply going based on the fact, and I think it's really worth noting, Heather, that even the Wall Street Journal editorial board, which is famously left-leaning, even said that the only reason that the Democrats are claiming this is just to pivot from the failed Russia narrative to try to villainize Bill Barr in order to try to impeach him in the court of public opinion and character assassinate him when he's going to be looking at the upcoming potential criminal indictments coming from the IG and other reports, including the Clinton campaign, the Christopher Steele dossier, possible other Obama administration officials. So that's really what we're dealing with here, is not so much Bill Barr's conduct as Attorney General, but rather the partisan political attacks of the Democrats.
So perhaps a distraction of sorts, or at least an attempt at a distraction in terms of what happens next. And what do you believe that will be?
Yeah, well, of course, the Democrats aren't going to stop. They're going to continue to beat this dead horse and try to ride it all the way to 2020, which is going to be a failed attempt for them. And so probably Congress is going to at least question impeachment proceedings. They have no legal basis. That would be completely politically partisan at this point, not constitutionally or politically viable. And also they probably will try to issue subpoenas and try to relitigate this in Congress. But really, the important investigation is just just now beginning. Mueller, the prosecutorial and legal questions are finished. They're asked and answered. It's closed. But the real investigation here is what Bill Barr is going to be doing in looking into exactly what happened on the Democratic side of the 2016 election. And I think that we will see a lot of very interesting legal facts and potentially some of those criminal indictments being handed down forthcoming, and definitely well before 2020.
You know, on Friday, this subpoena was issued demanding this that the DOJ provide this full unredacted version by May 1st. But really, that's just grandstanding, because some of these individuals who are demanding it can actually go and read it right now. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And Bill Barr has promised that to high-ranking senior-level congressional officers, and so he's made that available. And really, this is just a moot point, and it's something that's grandstanding, trying to, again, just character assassinate Bill Barr and try to create this false narrative in the media that he's hiding something when he has been objective and forthcoming throughout this entire process.
All right. Well, it's not going to end anytime soon. Jenna Ellis joining us live this morning. Thank you, Jenna.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Well, some other headlines we're following for you at this hour. Frustration growing in Mexico as another caravan overwhelms the country on its journey to the United States. Mexico, once welcoming the migrants, now reportedly clamping down, offering little aid, and detaining some people. Thousands are having a tougher time finding food, rides, and temporary visas. The White House has been pressuring Mexico to handle the influx of migrants. In March, 103,000 people were apprehended or turned away at the U.S. southern border. Well, taxpayers could be on the hook to pay legal bills for terrorists. Experts fear that aid applications could skyrocket after a British ISIS bride was given public funds to fight to get her citizenship back. Well, she's expected to get $260,000 for her court battle. And more than 100 former British citizens could follow her lead, which would cost the UK about $31 million. And yes, there could soon be 20 candidates fighting for the 2020 Democratic nomination. 2 new contenders are expected to throw their hats into the ring this week. The Atlantic reports former Vice President Joe Biden will make it official on Wednesday. And Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton is expected to announce this week as well. The third-term Democrat has already secured campaign office space. So they keep adding it on. But in the meantime, as those new campaigns take off, Beto O'Rourke's could be stalling. According to BuzzFeed, 2 top aides are stepping down, 2 of them. And both staffers are considered temporary and worked for O'Rourke during his failed Texas Senate run last year. A campaign spokesman says the former aides will continue to volunteer for Beto. Well, the time now is about 36 minutes after the top of the hour. And while Washington debates the future of health care in the U.S., some Americans are taking matters into their own hands to save their hard-earned cash. The money-saving trend that has patients hopping on cross-country flights for medical care. We're back with a Fox News alert for you. Sri Lanka on lockdown after a series of coordinated bombings target churches and hotels on Easter Sunday. Nearly 300 people now confirmed dead. Aisha Husni joins us now live with the very latest. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Yeah, new details coming in overnight into our newsroom that there might have been, Heather, some warning signs before these bombings went off. We're going to get to that information in just a second. But first, I want to give you an updated number on the death toll here. That has climbed now to 290 people. At least 500 more are wounded. We've also learned that at least 24 people have now been arrested. Now, investigators say the initial wave of attacks was carried out by 7 suicide bombers. No group right now has claimed responsibility for this. Of course, this all unfolded on Easter Sunday as Christians in Sri Lanka celebrated one of the holiest days of the year. Pope Francis addressed the tragedy from the Vatican. Listen.
I want to express my loving closeness to the Christian community targeted while they were gathered in prayer and all the victims of such cruel violence.
Now, most of the blasts were near the capital city of Colombo. Take a look at this map here. This is a popular tourist destination. The U.S. State Department now confirming that, yes, there were Americans that were killed here. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said in this statement here, quote, "These vile attacks are a stark reminder of why the United States remains resolved in our fight to defeat terrorism. We stand with the Sri Lankan government and people as they confront violent extremism. Now to the new information that I want to get to here. President Trump also, adding this on Twitter, the United States offering heartfelt condolences to the great people of Sri Lanka. We stand ready to help. Sri Lanka's prime minister now suggesting there might have been warning signs ahead of these bombings. This is a big deal, signaling new questions now about what could have been done, if anything at all, to stop these bombings from happening. Heather, more to come on that through the morning.
Yeah, we know they received a warning about a week and a half ago about potential threats at some churches in the area. So they will continue to look into that, of course. Thank you so much. We appreciate the update. Well, now another story that we've been following. The tiger that attacked a zookeeper we told you about is back on display. Well, Sanjeev will not be put down after puncturing a woman's head, neck, and back at the Topeka Zoo in Kansas.
We have staff getting attacked by a tiger. 5 staff is still in the enclosure. The tiger is still next to them, still attacking.
Well, the employee remains in intensive care but is expected to make a full recovery. 16 people rushed to the hospital as soon as their plane touches down. Can you imagine this flight? American Airlines says the group of 13 students and 3 chaperones were flying to Boston from Miami when they started feeling ill. Well, the group had eaten at a restaurant in Ecuador the night before their connecting flight. They are all expected to be okay. No other passengers or crew members got sick. It's still not clear exactly what caused the illness. We hear of people flocking to other countries for cheap surgeries and medical treatments, but now the medical tourism industry is going domestic. Dan Springer explains.
Dale Scrimshire, an IT worker for a public utility in Washington state, recently needed a medical test. Instead of just going where his doctor suggested, Scrimshire, with the help of his employer, actually shopped around and saved the PUD money. His reward, $100.
It's a power that the average person doesn't know they have, I think, and it feels like you're making a choice in your health care and the cost.
Anita Graves was also a U.S. medical tourist for her knee replacement. Her self-insured company flew her first class from Omaha, Nebraska to Longview, Washington. It saved $22,000 on the operation and still came out way ahead after paying all of Graves' travel expenses and her $1,500 out-of-pocket costs. Pacific Surgical, which did the operation, also made money by cutting overhead, room fees, and listing its prices.
This actually lets the market decide what that procedure is really worth.
While insurance costs continue to rise, the Cowlitz County PUD has all but frozen medical expenses over the last 3 years. Price shopping is voluntary for employees, but with transparency increasing, so is the buy-in.
The more people dig into the cost of insurance and why it costs what it costs, the more they're going to look at medical tourism as an option for them.
But not everyone thinks this free market approach to health care is a good trend. It comes as calls for a single payer system get louder.
It would be much simpler to have a unified system that would have everybody in the same pool.
Healthcare is sure to be a big issue in the 2020 presidential race. Most of the Democratic candidates are pushing Medicare for all. The polar opposite of this trend toward open competition, truth in pricing, and as little bureaucracy as possible.
All right, that was Dan Springer reporting for us. The time now is about 15 minutes until the top of the hour. Investigate or impeach. Democrats can't seem to get on the same page ahead of today's huddle over the Mueller report, but some are vowing to stay on the impeachment train until the end. Will this make or break the party in 2020? We'll debate up next.
The level of evidence in the Mueller report in a normal circumstance would be, I think, without question, within the realm of impeachable offenses.
I'm not there yet, but I can foresee that possibly coming.
Do you think this is impeachable?
Yeah, I do.
Well, Democrats divided over whether to pursue impeaching President Trump, but will the topic of impeachment make or break the party in 2020? Here now to debate is liberal political analyst Rashad Ritchie and Republican strategist Holly Turner. Thank you both for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, Heather.
So, Holly, I will start with you. What do you think? I mean, should the Democrats continue to pursue this?
Well, it's interesting that that's the only choices that they're even
considering. I mean, how about providing some real legislation that the American people want? I mean, the American people are over this. They're done with the Mueller report. They're done with the collusion talk. They've been lied to for 2 years. It's funny that the Democrats can't get on the same page, but it just shows that the party doesn't have its own platform to stand on. And that's what really should be concerning Americans who traditionally vote in the Democratic primary and vote for the Democrat nominee in the presidential election. What is their party even about anymore?
So what about that, Rashad? I mean, is there this fear or this possibility of, collusion fatigue, impeachment fatigue, and will potential voters just tune out?
Yeah, sure it is. And polling data suggests that while this is still an important issue, it is not their primary issue. I wrote an opinion piece for FoxNews.com called "Mueller Was Never the Answer for Democrats." And basically, in that op-ed, I highlight the fact that this should still be a policy debate rather than a debate on the Mueller report. But I feel like I'm in a twilight zone every time I hear someone say that Mueller somehow exonerated the president. Mueller did not exonerate the president. He said, contrary to that he could not exonerate the president.
Well, he did say that the evidence does not establish that the president was involved in an underlying crime related to Russian election interference. He also went on to say that Mueller is not sufficient to establish that the president committed an obstruction of justice offense. And then you have President Trump himself tweeting out, despite no collusion, no obstruction, the radical left Democrats do not want to go on to legislate for the good of the people, but only to investigate and waste time. This is costing our country greatly and will cost the Dems big time in 2020. Holly?
Yeah, and, Heather, it's not the prosecutor's job to exonerate. So the fact that Mueller did not specifically exonerate the president is no surprise because that's not his job. He's supposed to present the evidence. And as Rudy Giuliani says, you can't prove a negative. So what the American people would like to see is for the Democrats to come. They've got some time before the election. Let's bring some bipartisan legislation to the president's desk. Let's get some things done for the American people. I doubt they're going to do that because the last thing they want is for the president to have any sort of bipartisan victories in the House and in the Senate. But that's what the American people want. And if they want to give them that, that's going to be the best thing for our country.
Rashad, it does seem, though, right now that the most vocal voices we hear from the Democratic side are those who are calling for impeachment.
Yeah, they got to tap that down. Remember, impeachment is an unpopular political process. Right now, some of the elder members of the U.S. Congress on the Democratic side, they remember what happened when Republicans impeached President Bill Clinton. And right now, you do not have public sentiment to impeach the president of the United States. And here's why. Even if you impeach him, and technically they can based on the Mueller report, you still cannot remove him because after impeachment, you need a 2/3 majority vote of the U.S. Senate in order to remove a standing U.S. president. Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution, however, gives Congress the right of oversight. So if you love your First Amendment and your Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, love all of it, because right now Congress is simply exercising the constitutional authority to investigate and to oversee.
Holly, final word.
Well, my Democrat colleague has said it very well, and I hope that his party heeds his advice. It's good words to live by.
And then once again, Mueller concluding the evidence does not establish that the president was involved in an underlying crime related to Russian election interference. So we will see. Thank you both for joining us. Appreciate it. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Carry all that for you live, all the fun happening. But now it's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we begin with the good. Chicago cops helped deliver a baby on Easter Sunday. A mother apparently couldn't make it to the hospital in time, so she delivered her baby in a police station parking lot.
He got out his car, got his gloves, calm and cool, because I was a nervous wreck.
Well, baby Eva and her mom, we're told, are doing great. And now the bad. Remember when presidential hopeful Howard Schultz was mocked for this moment?
Congratulations. Got to clap for that.
Well, now the former Starbucks CEO is now brewing up attention over this campaign ad. It reads, the majority of Americans aren't Democrats or Republicans. The majority of Americans are Americans. Well, people quick to point out all Americans are Americans. Yeah. And finally, the ugly Gavin DeGraw's national anthem going viral for all the wrong reasons. After singing before the Predators Stars playoff game in Nashville, this happened. Ouch. DeGraw slips and face plants on the ice. He was a good sport about it, though, writing on Facebook, quote, someone said break a leg. I listened. Hopefully he didn't really break a leg. Well, that wraps up this hour of Fox and Friends First. Thank you so much for joining us to begin your week. Fox and Friends First continues right now. Bye-bye.
It is Monday, April 22nd, happening right